Hey, Emily,
Hey, Stephanie.
you want to do a podcast?
Absolutely.
Welcome to Cycle Chats, a podcast to destigmatize what it means to be a woman. This is episode 14, Cheese Please, featuring a queen of all things meats and cheeses, creating aesthetically pleasing boards for every occasion, the Amanda behind Charcuterie by Amanda. I cannot wait to hear what you have to say about this delicious thing that you've got going on.
I am so excited, and this is my first podcast I've ever done, so it's super, super exciting.
Yay. We get to take your podcast virginity. So, Amanda, I am just baffled by the work that you do because I clearly have stalked your Instagram because it feeds my stomach because it's just so beautiful and your ideas are amazing. So, my first question is, what made you get into this field?
So it's actually kind of a long story, kind of a short story. So I'm actually a flight attendant. So last year, when the pandemic hit, I was just home. All the flights were canceled, really bored, on Pinterest constantly, on Instagram constantly. So I started making boards. I used to make them here and there for like family and friends, but I really started to want to make fancy, fancy boards. So I had the time to get really creative. It was something I definitely would not have been able to do before with my schedule, because my schedule is really all over the place, and I'm a mom as well, of a 4-year-old. So the timing was never there for me to start something like this or have the time for it.
That's amazing. I always say that, I know 2020 was really awful for so many people, and it's still terrible what's happening with everything in COVID, but it has led a lot of people to readjust in certain ways and to allow them to, kind of go into their more passionate side. I always feel that you have to think about positives.
Yeah, definitely. It's definitely one good thing that came out of that crazy, crazy year.
You also have to put a lot of love into everything that you do. And I think that's especially true with food too. What do you look out for in the products that you pick?
I always try to get the best quality because I can make something look pretty, but if the quality isn't there, then who's going to enjoy it? So it's definitely the quality. And yeah, that's it. I get most of my products from like popular places like Trader Joe's, places like that. That's really what I look out for the most. And then of course, I'm really into color. So I always try to get things that are really colorful as well.
So, you're talking about color, and really, if you look at your boards, they're pieces of artwork. Did you grow up and were you very artsy? Were you in art classes? I just imagine you being this lone wolf in the back, like creating things in art class and then they being masterpieces. Was that always the case, or do I have the wrong idea?
No, what's so funny is my family is very artistic. Like my uncle in Puerto Rico is an artist. So I come from a very artistic family, but I always felt like I wasn't the artistic one until I started doing this. And I still never considered myself artistic until someone told me, oh my God, those are pieces of art. And I'm like, wait a minute, am I artistic? So, it's kind of been really cool to see my side of creativity in this.
So did you play with your food when you were a kid? I'm imagining mom bringing you dinner and it not being aesthetically pleasing for you. So you moving the peas over or something and creating smiley faces and, stuff.
I always want my food to look pretty. And I was always the really annoying one to take pictures of my food at every restaurant. So it drives my husband crazy because he really just wants to eat. And he's like, does anyone really care how your food looks? And I'm like, I care.
So when someone creates a custom order, you cut out, are those little cheese letters that I'm looking at?
Yes. I use cookie cutters for the cheese.
What on the board are you get most excited about putting together?
I love, which is the most popular, I love doing the salami rose. It makes every board just look so pretty. As I feel like as long as I have the roses in there, it's gonna definitely interest somebody.
I see here you taught your first class, which before we even started, you were saying you've never taught a class before, which is crazy to me. So tell me what the whole process of putting that together and then actually class day, what went into this really cool idea to be able to teach somebody how to do it?
So I actually got in contact with, he has a winery in Long Island. He got in contact with me because he wanted to incorporate like cheese boards and things like that in his winery. I had the idea of possibly hosting my first class because in the cheese world, this right now it's becoming popular. So I wanted to do something different, something that would make me stand out and something else that I can incorporate into my business. So it was really difficult because obviously it was my first class. I didn't know really anything about this. So I kind of just had to go with the flow. And yeah, so we booked the class. I felt like I at first had no idea what I was doing, but you know what? I got to jump into it. My mom is adorable. My mom is like, you miss 100% of the chances you don't take. So she's like, I don't know where the quote came from, but I know I've heard it. And I'm like, it's a good quote. So I figured, why not just jump into it? And it was actually a success. It was great.
So you were just teaching people to make boards? Did they have to get their own materials? Could they bring whatever they wanted?
No, so we provided everything. So with the ticket, it came with, we did 3 types of cheese, 2 types of meat, and then it was all fruit, crackers, chocolate, and mixed nuts. And then the winery gave a complimentary glass of wine, which is amazing. So it was just really fun. It was a very like interactive class. It was so much fun, so much fun. So I just taught, you know, kind of placement of where I would put the cheese, but I made it very clear, which I want everyone to know when doing these boards is wherever you really think it looks pretty, that's fine. There's no wrong way to do it. So I kind of went about the class like that.
You're smart, Amanda. The fact that you have created this business out of this is so amazing to me. Have you always been savvy in business? Is that something that you learned from parents? Did you grow up around that? Because to come up with a class, that's brilliant. So was this something that you were always kind of business savvy?
So business-wise, I felt growing up that I always wanted to have a business. I just never knew in what exactly. My mom is actually really, really successful in her life. She just kind of goes for whatever she sets her mind to. So when I started this, it was actually with her push. It was over morning coffee. She goes, you need to start a business. And I'm like, okay. And then, like I said, through the pandemic and everything, she's like, you got to do it. So I'm like, all right, I'm going to do it. So I think along with just me wanting to do it and then just the push of like the close people in my life, I just went for it.
Mother knows best. As women, we need to lift each other up. And that's something we talk about a lot on this podcast, is that so often we find that there's this unnecessary competition of like, I'm going to be the one to outshine. There's room for all of us.
It's so funny you say that because I say that all the time because there's actually a few other girls who are doing what I'm doing in New York. Obviously, New York is huge.
And that's where
Yes,
you are
yes.
in Queens. Good to know. To our Florida peeps, you can't quite get these boards yet. I feel big things from Amanda.
Yeah, she's a flight attendant. She can take it on the plane with her after this is all over.
Oh, I cannot wait to take them on the plane. I cannot wait. I'm like, I cannot wait to have my lunch of cheese and fancy meats and all these things. I am so excited for it.
I have a feeling that all the passengers are going to raise their hand and be like, ma'am, I'll take one of those.
I'm not sure if I'll be allowed to sell them, but
Hey, listen, dream big, Amanda.
Amanda, you're going to have to make your own airline.
we service charcuterie boards and wine for my airline.
First class, I'll buy a ticket. We don't even need to take off. Just sit in the plane.
Always joke around and say, when I go back to work, I'm just going to like accidentally drop my business cards all over the airport and while on the plane.
I fell. Oh, my business cards are scattering in the wind. Whoopsie.
But you were saying, so there are a couple other women in your area that do what you do, yeah?
So I've had a couple of them like reach out to me and ask me little things, you know, like where I get like my boxes or where I get like I've been getting a lot of questions about like the cheese letters and they don't know cookie cutters, but I tell everyone what I know. And then they're so surprised by it. So many of them like, oh my God, thank you so much. And I'm like, why wouldn't I help? I'm like, there's room for all of us. We're all in this world, like the cheese world too. Everyone is so different and creative in their own way. So I don't ever feel like, oh my God, they're my competition. I'm like, they're not. Like, they're just doing what I'm doing in their own way. And there's no reason why I shouldn't help or spread what I know, you know, and what I've learned.
You're an educator. You're being a teacher. And I think any good pioneer does that. They don't hold it in and be like, oh, I'm not going to tell you. Because the truth is, what makes your stuff so special is the fact that you are the one that's putting it together. So nobody can take that away from you. You have a famous makeup artist that I absolutely love, Scott Barnes. He always says, I can tell you my tips and tricks. I can tell you what products I use, no problem. He said, but these are my hands and no one can do what I do with makeup because it's my hands doing it. So why not share? Because you still have edge because it's your hands that are making it.
Exactly. And that's how I feel completely. That's why I never mind helping anyone. I'm like, we have to. We're women. We have to support each other. We have to.
Yeah, people are always so surprised too when you're willing to like they're like, what? And I'm like, yeah, what? It's such a gross thing to me when people withhold information. You had to learn it from somewhere. Why not continue to share? And then there's a sense of community, which you brought up the cheese world. Is this like some secret society? How do I get in? Is there a card, a membership?
What is so funny is when I first made my Instagram page, I actually made it in August of 2020. And I had no idea the amount of pages with cheese boards on it. It is insane. So I always say the cheese world because I talk to women from everywhere, United States, even outside of the United States, who do the same thing. So it's like this own like little community. I'm actually also it's like a group message on Instagram and it is called Brown Girls Cheese. So I'm actually multiracial. I'm Black and Puerto Rican and all these girls are Black or Spanish or Indian or whatever. And it's like another community inside the cheese community. Like we're supporting each other as like brown girls as well. And they are also from everywhere too. Like there's a girl in London who we talk to. It's insane, this community. So I always find it so funny. I'm like, oh my God, when I start traveling and working again, I'm like, I'm gonna have friends everywhere. It's just so wild to me.
We recently spoke with a midwife and she talks about Black birthing and how that's so important because a lot of women of color have different struggles with birthing, where they're from, their upbringing. So kind of playing along the lines of that, do you find that when somebody sees who's behind the board, they're less likely to like it? Because we talk about privilege sometimes on this show, because I think it's important that Emily and myself were just born a certain color and just naturally born with privilege. So we always try to, what were your struggles growing up? How can we use our privilege to be the voice for people who people don't want to listen to? So that's, I guess, this community is closer and there's not as much division in it. I'm wording it kind of like a dumb way.
So with the group I'm a part of, Brown Girls Cheese, I definitely find that we support each other a lot because we have the same backgrounds. So I definitely feel a strong sense of community with them. Like their messages going back and forth all day. Like I can message them and I'll get a response instantly about anything. Like the support with them is unreal. Like there's a girl who also did her first class yesterday and she's in Delaware and I've never met her. And she messaged me this morning. The sweetest thing. I hope your class was great. It's just the support with them is so out of this world and amazing. And granted, I talk to other girls in this like cheese world community, but I feel like the support I have from them is so amazing and so unreal. Like I still sometimes I'm like, oh my God, I'm talking to, I don't even know how many girls in the group. There could be 20 of them. I'm not sure. And I'm like, I'm talking to these girls from everywhere. And like the way that they support me and encourage me and motivate me is amazing.
I love that because you know what, I do think with the state of how the world is that we do need to have more representation in every single thing that we do. And so the fact that there is such a close community in that way, and I can imagine you ladies have gone through some ish in your life that have made you more sympathetic, empathetic, understanding, wanting that connection. And I think that shifts how you move through the world. When you've had to fight a little bit harder to be heard or to be seen, you have more of I feel like a warmth to you.
Definitely when I started doing this, I was definitely a little bit intimidated and sometimes even like, oh my God, will someone not order from me because of my background? You always have that kind of in your mind, being mixed and biracial, multiracial. You always have that in your mind, but thankfully, I haven't been in a situation or anything that I have felt, someone judged me based on the color of my skin. I've only been judged on my work, which is great.
I think anybody should. I mean, my God, I feel like you make these beautiful works of art. They're probably delicious. Like you put your heart and your soul into something. If you're good at it, how you look, what your background is, that shouldn't even be a question. So I would hope that the day would never come because I want that person's name and number and I will go to their door and be like, with the salami. Where do you find most of your orders come from? Like for what occasions do you find you get most of your orders?
I actually get a lot of orders for birthdays, definitely. A majority of when at my busiest is different holidays, of course. Valentine's Day was huge. Lately, I've been getting them for a lot of different things, though, that I wouldn't think. Like, I did my first order for a bride who was giving it to her future husband on their wedding day, just as a little gift for the morning of, which I thought was adorable. And I'm like, oh my God. So she just wanted a board, like a regular, like one of my boxes. And she's like, just a little something. And I'm like, yes. I was the one who said, can I put in cheese letters, see you soon, please? And she's like, okay.
Typically, when you get your orders, I notice you always ask for 48 hours in advance. Do you make them 48 hours in advance or that's just to start prepping?
I ask for at least 48 hours in advance because I like to go shopping for everything the day before. So the fruit I buy as late as I can before my order. So if I have an afternoon order, I'll get the fruit the morning of so it's fresh. If I have morning orders, I get it the afternoon before. So I just need time because I get things from all different stores. For the days I have big orders, I spend 4 to 5 hours just shopping at different stores. So I do always ask for that time frame because if not, then I really just won't have the time.
So what to you makes the best board? Like what components do you need?
Definitely my favorite cheese that I love to put that it's delicious and it looks beautiful and you'll see it on most of my boards is the blueberry goat cheese. And everyone is always asking, what is that blue cheese? And I'm like, I'm putting it on your board. Sometimes when I say it's goat cheese, they're like, and I'm like, try it, please try it, and then get back to me. And usually like right after they get the board, I'll get a message that night like, oh my God, it's so good. I'm like, I told you. I love to always put that. It's delicious. It always looks pretty. Definitely fresh fruit and of course salami.
Have you ever done like, because there's so many people out there, you know, that have so many dietary restrictions now?
So I have done one vegan. My first time doing it was a little bit more difficult because I had to go out and get like the vegan cheeses and find different ways to still make it look like it's not something I was used to doing. So still to make it look pretty, like my other board, and it worked out. So that was my first one. That's the only one I have gotten so far. Vegetarian, I've done a few times. Of course, the cheese is fine. And usually I'll do like peppers or different things that I can add in there with colors. Like I'll do like the colorful, like stuffed peppers. Because like I said, I'm always all about the colors. I'll try to put in like the colorful stuffed peppers or a lot of different type of fruit in it. And I've also done kosher as well.
My mother would be so proud.
Yeah, so I've done kosher. Those are pretty easy. I've done those a few times as well. Most people don't even tell me what to put on. They're like, do your thing, which is always fun. I'm like, oh, yay. No, I usually am like, is there a special occasion? Is it a birthday? Is it an anniversary? Is it this? Because I usually want to try something. So sometimes they're like, no, it's for nothing. I'm like, oh, okay.
Like, huh. Have you ever gotten somebody that was very specific on what they wanted?
Well, usually when someone is really specific, they'll be like, okay, I want these 2 types of cheese. I can't even remember the exact order. I used to get them a lot in the beginning when I first started. They would just tell me like, I want this type of cheese and I want blackberries and blueberries, but like very specific. And I want mozzarella, but no tomatoes and like this, but like a paragraph of everything they wanted and didn't want. And when I first started, I was like, oh my God, it was very intimidating. I'm like, oh my God, what am I going to do?
You're not going to tell an artist what to paint. How dare they?
Because I have a lot of space to get creative and most people don't tell me. I usually, when I get orders that are very specific, I'm happy to do them. But of course, I love the best when I have really no restrictions at all, because then I could really do whatever I want. And I love that. It's so much fun. I can eat cheese every single day. I love like plain goat cheese and salami with some type of like jam on it. That's like my favorite thing. And my husband is always like, how are you not tired of eating cheese? And I'm like, I will never in my life get tired of eating cheese and drinking wine. Never. It is my favorite thing.
So you grew up with a lot of food influence influence.
Yes, a lot of good food.
So is that what inspires you?
Definitely. My mom is an amazing cook. My dad is even a great cook. You know, most of everyone in my family, but it's funny because I'm not a big cook. Like I honestly don't enjoy cooking. I enjoy doing charcuterie boards, but I really don't enjoy cooking. So this is my thing. When I want like really good food, I either order out or I go to my mom's house. When everyone wants really good, pretty boards for me, you know, I make boards. But I'm a big foodie though. Like I do love going to different places to eat and trying different things. I think the influence of my husband and I just growing up with a lot of good food around us, like we love trying different things. Even my 4-year-old son eats sushi. He eats calamari. He eats everything. He also knows how to make a cheese board, which is hilarious.
What does he like to put on it?
He'll do like the chocolates, the fruit, and he'll put cheese. He doesn't like all the cheese, but he's so funny because he wants to make it look pretty. So he'll put it and he'll be like, I'm going to put it down, but you can eat it.
That's so sweet. And that's amazing because you're teaching the next generation to follow their dreams, which I think is really important. Your passion is really important to follow wherever it may lead. If you're unsuccessful, if you're successful, you have to follow your passion.
There's actually a saying, I can live with failure. I can't live with what if. And I've been saying it a lot. I feel like on every episode because it's true. I think if we just step outside of ourselves and be like, this might not be the most comfortable, but I'm going to do it anyway. I feel like even if something fails, you grow from it. And growth is just as great as success. It just propels you into that next step of something that, you know, makes you a better human, which I have to know. The next step for you, is it like a storefront? Are we going to be able to dine in?
I would love a storefront. Definitely in my little vision. I haven't sat down and made a vision board yet for this year, but it's definitely on there, whether it happens this year or next year. It's funny because every time my husband and I are driving and we pass like a place that's like for rent, he's always like, that could be your charcuterie spot.
I love that you have such a supportive partner too. I think you need that, right? If you don't have a supportive partner when you're going into something like your own business, you need people that support you in your life.
Definitely, because so yesterday when I did the class, I don't personally feel like I'm good at public speaking. At least I'm like, I don't have practice in it. Besides at work as a flight attendant, I talk to passengers. I talk on the speaker. That is the farthest I've ever done in public speaking. And he's really good at it. My husband, he's really good. And on the drive yesterday to the place, and he calls me, he's like, okay, I'm going to act like one of the people in your class and I'm going to start asking you questions. And I'm like, it was so cute. But then he's asking really crazy questions. And I'm like, all right, I got to go.
But that's how it should be. And I feel that a lot of women sometimes don't realize that you have a partner, a true partner that loves you. They support you. They're there for you. They uplift you.
He's definitely special. Both my boys.
You have 2 boys. Oh, okay.
No. I'm saying my husband and my son.
Well, one of them is a kid, and then I'm sure the other one acts like a child every once in a while.
I always say they're both kids.
You are a female business owner. What is the hardest thing that you find about being a female business owner?
I definitely feel like just as a female, I just feel like in general, you may not get taken as seriously, or you may not seem off the bat. Someone may be like, oh, So example, I actually did a delivery a few months ago. And when I went to do the delivery, it was for this guy who was a business owner, and he was there with 2 friends, and they were standing outside, and I go to do the delivery. It was the man's birthday. So I was delivering, someone had ordered for him. He knew I was coming, didn't know what it was, whatever. So I go and I bring him the box, and his friend was like, oh, he's like, you deliver these? And I was like, I make them. He's like, oh, so who do you work for? And I'm like, myself. And he's like, oh, so it's your business? You don't do. And I'm like, yes, it's my business. And then he also went as far as asking where I lived or where I was, I do my orders. And I said Howard Beach. And he even went as far as asking me if I rent or own my home. I was so taken back. And I'm like, are you kidding me? Like, yes, I'm a business owner. Yes, I'm a homeowner. And like, is that so hard to believe because I'm a woman?
I'm just sitting here silently raging, just on fire.
I don't understand why that has to be. And like, I also feel like sometimes when you're doing certain things, like, okay, I'll give you an example. So I have been a freelance makeup artist for over 12 years. I would get a lot, oh, this must be a fun little side job. And I was like, no, this is what I do. Because what is so hard to believe that a woman could make, deliver, own, be a boss in her own right. Why is that such like a hard concept to stomach for certain individuals?
That is crazy. It's just, it's a lot. And that's what I feel is definitely as a woman is probably the most, because you're always going to be looked at as like, wait, like, are you the real owner? You know, to be a woman in general is just rough sometimes. You know, you constantly feel like you have to prove yourself when it shouldn't be that way.
And do you feel like people, because what I got from that is the guy probably thought, oh, this is some cute little hobby she probably does. Do you feel that people sometimes look at what you do in that light and you kind of have to put them in their place?
It's funny you say that because I sometimes, and I hate that I do this, but I always say oh, and I'm a flight attendant. And I feel like it's because I don't want people to think, oh, it's just a little thing that she's doing. I don't know, it just comes out like, oh yeah, I'm a flight attendant, but I do this, when I shouldn't have to always say, like, I should be like, no, this is my business. Like, this is what I do.
It's like, you know what this is for you, but it's like you have to make it easily digestible for somebody else. And that's a woman trait. And I feel like we have to acknowledge that because I do it too. We have to acknowledge that we do that and go, no, this one thing is valid. This is what I do for a living. And I don't have to like, oh, but I also, no, this is what I do. And if you can't digest that, then that's on you, because I know that I'm a boss.
At certain points, I like to talk about, you know, my job because it is important to me and I love it, but I need to stop making it seem like this isn't important as well, because this is important. Like, this business is like my little baby. And I had this conversation the other day with my mom, and I was saying that, you know, sometimes I kind of feel like, because of the way it grew so fast, a part of me sometimes feels like it's like fake, or like I'm being a fake. But I think it's just so surreal that this is what it has grown into in a short period of time.
Well, we're certainly very proud of you, and we don't even know you. Seriously, because your journey, you started, how long have you been doing this now?
I started my Instagram page August of 2020. So it's been almost 7 months.
I mean, it's like huge kudos.
The sky's the limit for you, baby.
It's really, really exciting. You know, sometimes I'm like, oh my God. I woke up today and I was like, oh my God. I'm like, I taught a class. Like, people bought tickets to my class. I'm like, what? This is insane. Even last year during this time, like, if someone would have told me, like, yeah, you're going to be a business owner in a year and you're going to teach a class and your class is going to be sold out, I would have been like, you're insane. You're drunk. Go home.
For the length of time that you've been doing it, I just feel like it's only going to keep going up, and you should be so proud. And that kind of makes me want to ask the question, when you started, what was your average order versus now where you feel like you've picked up a little bit?
I mostly have orders like weekends, and I want to say I did start in a time where it was a lot of holidays coming up. So I want to say I can have like from 15 to 20 to however many orders a day on the weekend, like a Saturday. Average I can do, I've actually done up to 37 orders in a day.
Wow.
That was my biggest. It was for actually a real estate company.
And then you have to drop these off as well. So you're just like, you're driving like a wild woman.
Usually I have help. My family is very, very, very supportive, and they help me a lot.
So you were talking about your mom and saying that she is a very prominent business owner. You know, she does that, and that you're kind of following in the footsteps of the business. So I'm sure you've had amazing women in your life. I'm sure you've learned from all of those women role models, and I'm sure you have a pretty good definition of what women empowerment means.
Definitely. I have a lot of strong women in my family. Like, everyone is, all the women I've looked up to my entire life had been all so independent. Like, when I met my husband and I got married, it was never like, okay, now you stay home. It was never like that. It was always like, we're in this equally. The same with like raising my son. When I was younger, my dad cooked dinner. My mom used to sometimes be working. It was always so equal. My mom was so strong and so like did her own thing. I just feel like I just had so many great women to look up to. And that's why I am the way I am now.
So before we let you go, we always have one question that we ask our guests. What advice would you give your 15-year-old self?
Definitely just don't let anyone tell you can't do anything ever. Don't get fooled by these stupid boys around. you and focus on yourself always. And don't let anyone make you doubt yourself. So I felt like at that age, I used to always think like, oh, maybe I can't do this, whatever. And no, you could do anything you want.
Thank you so much. This was, I think both Stephanie and I are going to run to our fridges and get cheese now.
Oh, there's meats in the fridge. So I'm like, well,
Stephanie's going to eat that salami.
that's right. We've been talking about it for an hour.
Thank you so much. This was amazing.
Steph, you need to ask your question.
I gotta ask, where can everybody listening find your gorgeous creations? Where can they find you?
On Instagram, Charcuterie by Amanda.
And the applicable links will be in the description below. So check her out.
You guys are amazing. You made me feel so comfortable. I feel like I know you. Sorry if my son came in occasionally screaming or my dog is barking.
But this is the part of being a real businesswoman, a real owner, the fact that you're packaging something to deliver right after you get off this podcast. You're hustling, you're making it happen. And we appreciate you so much, Amanda, for even taking a small bit of your time out of your day, because I know time is precious.
It was truly my pleasure. Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you so much. And guys, thank you for listening, and we hope you sync up with us next time.